We are now coming into our final race of today. It is the MK Mini GP50-R race, and it is our final race of the first day here at Ellough Park. It's going to be absolutely brilliant stuff to see from them. 12 laps overall for these guys. Brilliant stuff.
Yes, it will be indeed. Should be really interesting to see how this new class gets ready and all unfolds. And of course, who else would it be starting from pole but Sebastian Gaslawski? The boy's been untouchable so far in 2025, and he continues to push onwards. Now, this class is where it gets interesting, especially in this round. Of course, new for 2025, the Mini GP50-R. It's available to either Metrakit Mini GP50s, as we see in the Mini GP50 category, funnily enough, with an upgraded carb. A bigger carburetor on the engine allows it a little bit more grunt. And the reason that's allowed is that in this class, it is also allowed to run Ohvale 140s and 160s. So those four-stroke Ohvales, which are a little bit quicker naturally than Metrakit 50s, they're allowed in. And some riders do like to ride them here. Some riders just like to, stick the bigger carb on the Metrakit, and away they go. Interestingly, though, last time out, the Metrakit seems to be on top. Lid, it's a circuit where you're very much right at the top of the rev range. You're using that two-stroke power. Here, there's a couple of places I think the four-stroke Ohvales might have the advantage using that grunt out of the corners.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to watch and see what happens. They're just making their way round now to the grid, ready to get going on their
Is that issues for Bradley Curtis?
That is indeed. That is the 71 of Bradley Curtis. Seems to be struggling there as they're coming round to form the grid, ready for their outlap. Just have to wait and see what's going to happen here. He hasn't made it very far at all. I guess all the other riders coming round to the grid. Someone's giving him a bit of a push there, see if they can get him going, but we'll see what will happen there. He has stopped at the side of the track, waiting to see what's going to happen.
That's not a marshal either. That's someone who's actually jumped over the fence of the track to try and help them. So kudos to them for trying to give him a bit of a hand. But I'm sure those down at the front of the pack know what's going on. As Curtis gesturing to the crowd, to the marshals, to the flag marshal, wondering what on earth is going on. Again, that bike, its gearbox was in pieces this morning. It got repaired. We saw him with issues in the race earlier on in the 50s, and it could be more issues now as well, as there is chief mechanic / dad having a look, seeing if they can get it going again. As it does now start up by the sounds of things, and it is now running on its own power, so hopefully Bradley Curtis will be in this race. I'm going to say that tentatively because reliability-wise, it has not been the 71's day today.
No, it hasn't. You are right, Ross. We'll have to see what happens when they do the outlap and then get ready and to actually start the race officially. They're starting on their outlap. Let's do a run-through of our riders' form in today's grid. In pole position, we have Super Sebastian Gaslawski. Second place, we have Mason Frederick. In third place, we have Frankie Watson. Fourth place, Matthew Thomas. Fifth place, Bradley Curtis. In sixth, we have Josh Perkins. Seventh, Tommy Keats. Eighth, Jensen Ansell. Ninth, Emilio Pereira. 10th, Caelan Ratcliffe. 11th, Nicholas Dunwoody. 12th, Kai Hawken. And making up our final grid position in 13th is Oscar McAllister. I think we've got a very interesting race on our hands with these guys here. They have all been very competitive already today, those that have been competing in other series. So let's see what's going to happen.
Should be really, really interesting. Of course, that Ohvale against Metrakit comparison. Interesting that Sebastian Gaslawski starting on an Ohvale as well. We were talking to them and his family earlier, and they were saying they hadn't done any running on the Ohvale whatsoever this weekend. They did the qualifying on the Metrakit, managed to get pole on the Metrakit, but they were saying, we think race-wise, it might just be worth jumping in on the Ohvale and seeing what's happening, even though they haven't done a single lap around here this weekend. Will that backfire? It's possible. Will it be an inspired move? We'll have to wait and find out. It's all eyes to the lights. Gaslawski on pole, Frederick alongside. It is lights out and we're underway. Good start by both of the front runners there, but it will be Fedric with the inside into turn one, and who does inherit the lead of the race as he slides on by. But Gaslawski immediately tries to fight back, doesn't quite come into fruition. It will be the 5 early doors that takes the lead from Gaslawski, and Frankie Taylor in P3, or Frankie Watson should I say, in P3. Just behind him Matthew Thomas as well, so they're all holding on to their early order so far, and there is a rider down there in the background, possibly Nicholas Dunwoody. That's gone down on the exit of turn 3. No, in fact, it's the 22. That'll be Jensen Ansel. He started P8, but he's back on the bike and able to get going again. Up the front, though, Mason Fedric. Dream start for the number 5 as he takes the lead.
It was absolutely brilliant start from Mason Fedric starting this race. Just coming round now to start the second lap of this race. Mason Fedric is leading ahead of Sebastian Gaslawski. Super Seb is not going to be the happiest with that. He's going to fight and try and take back that first place. Following them in third is number 14 of Frankie Watson, with the 71 of Bradley Curtis behind him. Matthew Thomas is running in fifth. That makes out our top 5 at the moment. Here we are, Mason Fedric leading ahead of Sebastian Gaslawski in this mini GP50-R race. Forming a bit of a gap, those two are ahead of Frankie Watson. This is a battle between them two for first place, and they don't want anybody else getting involved.
Absolutely. I must stand corrected. It must be said it is the Metrakit GP50 that Sebastian Gaslawski is running on, so he didn't make the switch. Is running on the bike that he's been running all weekend on. But again, maybe that was the wrong decision, because once again, we are now seeing an Ohvale in front of him, and he's not quite able to get back through, but he does get underneath. Fedric at the exit of turn 1, not quite able to squeeze through into turn 2. Again, you just don't quite get the grunt out of the corner with that 2-stroke engine. All of the power's at the top of the rev band. You just got to be banging off the limiter, basically, in order to be quick with a 2-stroke. With a 4-stroke, it's so much more reliable on lower revs and just gives you immediate power, immediate torque out of corners. And maybe that's where Gaslawski's struggling, just on the exit of corners. Yes, it was a great run out of turn number 1, but couldn't get up the inside, just didn't have the grunt down the straight.
No, he didn't. 10 laps left to go in this mini GP50-R race. Mason Fedric leading ahead of Sebastian Gaslawski. On our screens right now, we can see the number 71 of Bradley Curtis leading ahead of the 47th of Matthew Thomas and the 30 of Josh Perkins. A little battle going on between those guys there for 4th position. Running in 3rd place, we have the number 14 of Frankie Watson at the moment, who is trying to keep up with Mason Fedric and Sebastian Gaslawski. Has Sebastian... Yes, I do think he could have...
Yeah, Mason he has. Back to the lead.
Sebastian Gaslawski, the number 64, has taken the lead back from Mason Fedric. Super Seb leads once again with 9 laps left to go. He's building a gap up now. Mason Fedric not quite able to keep up with him just at the moment, but he could pull everything he has out of that bike and catch up with Super Seb.
Nice stuff there from Gaslawski, back to the lead after losing it at turn 1 on the opening lap. And look at that, super focused, not even glancing back. Doesn't need to check and see if Fedric is close, if Fedric's trying again. Oh, Fedric's chain's off! Fedric's lost his chain, he's out of the race! Wow, what a sudden turn of events. Frustration for the number 5 of Mason Fedric, and understandably so. As the chain comes off the number 5, that'll be, or is it the chain? No, it's not the chain, it's actually, is that the kickstand or something? Well, something hanging off. It looked like the chain from a distance, but something hanging off the 5, and that could very much be race over. I think it is. Yeah, I think it's the gear selector that's hanging down there. Bizarre.
That means now, though, Sebastian Gaslawski is leading this race and hasn't really got anybody on his tail at the moment. He can find a comfortable groove, get comfortable with that lead he has, and just fly ahead of everyone else. He did just set a fastest lap of 48.838 here in the first race. Brilliant stuff from Sebastian Gaslawski. Running behind him in second is number 14 of Frankie Watson, and currently in 3rd place and making our final podium position is the 71 of Bradley Curtis, who is in a little bit of a battle here with the 47 of Matthew Thomas and the 30 of Josh Perkins. They all know now that 3rd place is up for grabs, and they're not going to let it go easily.
Absolutely, they're going to be on full attack mode now, full push, knowing there is a podium at the end of this race, the final race of the day, here at the second round of the Mastermac FAB-Racing Mini Bike British Championship at Ellough Park. And of course, you'd like to finish the day up on a podium, wouldn't you? Just a nice little treat before you go to bed and get ready for Sunday's action. Of course, 2 more races in all of our classes coming your way Sunday. They'll be live here on Motorsport Radio or on the FAB-Racing social media pages. Make sure you're watching along wherever you are around the world to keep up with all of the action. As we come to a conclusion here on Saturday, though, with 6 laps left to go. Gaslawski now with a healthy breathing room behind him following Fedrick's issues. Frankie Watson in P2 himself with a considerable gap to Bradley Curtis in P3, who we see now the 71 again nearly didn't start this race. Mechanical issues all throughout the weekend, nearly didn't even make it to the grid, had to get a push start to get the thing going. Now potentially on for a podium.
Yeah, now that it's going, it's working for him and he seems to be quite comfortable. The 47 though, Matthew Thomas, is hot on his tail. He gets closer but then ends up pulling away a little bit, and Bradley Curtis is holding on to that 3rd position. He is hungry to be on a podium, finishing on a podium on the first day of our race weekend. Brilliant stuff we are seeing here. 5 laps left to go. Sebastian Gaslawski leading, flying ahead of everybody else, but we are still watching the battle going on here for 3rd place between Bradley Curtis and Matthew Thomas, and Josh Perkins looking to get involved in the action on occasions. Brilliant stuff we are seeing from these guys. Matthew Thomas going to try, and he cannot quite keep up with Bradley Curtis on the 71 and make the move, either going on the inside to try and get 3rd place from him. 4 laps in total left to go of our first mini GP50-R race here at Ellough Park. That is the number 71 of Bradley Curtis, still holding on to that 3rd place. This battle has been going on between these guys for the vast majority of the race. Bradley Curtis doing some proper defending there, holding on to that position while Matthew Thomas hunts him down.
Yeah, getting really tied out on the racetrack. Nothing to separate the pair of them. As they head through, it will still be Curtis that leads ahead of Thomas as they go on to 3 laps left to go, but maybe doors slightly open there for Thomas, should I say, as Curtis made a small error when he tipped in, and this time Thomas to the inside. Oh, super close between them. That is brave stuff. Still not done though. Curtis back to the inside, up and under maybe for Thomas. Somehow, Bradley Curtis holds on to P3. Man, oh man, racing at its brilliant best between the pair of them. Matthew Thomas ain't done yet though. He's going to push this all the way to the end. The 47 was in front for the briefest of moments, and now has to go again, has to set it up again, has to move again. It was all started by a mistake from Curtis down into turn 1, penultimate lap of the race in this battle for the final podium places. Is it another opportunity for Matthew Thomas? I don't think so this time. No, this time he'll stay, but that was proof that Matthew Thomas has what it takes to get up into the podium places. He just needs to launch another attack and get it done again. Huge wobble on the front end. This time he gets it done. Brilliant move.
We will have to see what is going to happen between these guys here. That 47 of Matthew Thomas now leading ahead of that 71 of Bradley Curtis. He did it. He made the move, got past him, and he's taking that 3rd position away from Bradley Curtis. There is our race leader. 1 lap left to go. Sebastian Gaslawski. Oh, big off there.
Is that Bradley Curtis? Not Bradley Curtis, should I say. Is that Matthew Thomas who's gone down? Yes, it is. The 47 who just made a ferocious move, now down at the final corner. The bike looks okay. He is up. Those are the most important things, but frustrating there for him. But coming to the end, the 64, Sebastian Gaslawski, untouchable once again. Nobody else inside. He can cruise on home but sheer focus, sheer commitment, sheer willpower from that young man who has been phenomenal so far this season and gets into round 2, continues it with a bang. Sebastian Gaslawski dominates the opening race of the Mini GP50-R class. And man, oh man, the celebrations there show you how much that meant. He's coming to 2025 a boy possessed and continues his hot streak. It was Frankie Watson who comes home in second place. Bradley Curtis rounds out the podium places. Josh Perkins finishes 4th. Tommy Keats is set to finish 5th. Matthew Thomas should just about hold on for P6, I believe, if he's able to finish following that incident. Nicholas Dunwoody 7th, Caelan Ratcliffe P8, Kai Hawke in 9th, and Austin McAllister in P10. But man, oh man, what a race we just saw there. Such a shame that Matthew Thomas went down and robbed us of that fantastic battle with Bradley Curtis to the end. But Sebastian Gaslawski, once again, the man of the moment here.
He always is, isn't he? Super Seb, and I think that nickname's really going to stick now. But it could all change again tomorrow. We've got another 2 races for each of the classes coming tomorrow. And it'll be very interesting to see how these guys battle, how Matthew Thomas copes when he's... and hopefully doesn't have an incident like he did again today.
Yeah, that was a real shame for Matthew Thomas. I mean, the conditions today, it's a bit warm. The track maybe a little bit too hot for optimum conditions. A few people just having, I don't want to say schoolboy mistakes, but just really simple offs that you really shouldn't expect these guys to be having. So maybe they'll have to reset, go again in race 2 and 3 tomorrow. Time for race number 2 of our new class, the Mini GP50Rs, of course, open to upgraded Metrakit Mini GP50s with a bigger carburettor, and also open to Ohvale 140s and 160s. Now, these guys, always very interesting to see how a new class unfolds, and a really interesting race number 1 as well. Sebastian Gaslawski still the man of the moment so far. So we'll see if he can manage to maintain that position in this one. Of course, Queenie, this is the last of our race 2s. So unfortunately, it's the last of the full-length races that we are going to be experiencing today. So let's hope it's a good one.
Yeah, well, it definitely will be a good one indeed. Of course, new class for this season adds a little bit of extra competition. Again, allows and increases the reach of FAB-Racing to allow those that have the Ohvale chassis to come and race it. Mix it up, of course, with the Metrakits, and of course giving the Metrakits a chance with the upgraded carburettor, allowing more fuel to enter and produce a little bit more power compared to what they're used to. And that's why you'll see a number of recognisable faces, the likes of Gaslawski, Watson, Curtis, all in this class as well. And they're going to be looking to get some more experience again on that Metrakit 50. They're making their way to the grid, where they'll be set off for their formation lap to the grid, and then again to get this race underway for what will be 10 very fast, very frantic laps of racing action. And again, even though it's a new class, of course, it's the same bikes that we're sort of used to seeing already. And again, the same riders that we've come to know and love, with some electric battles all the way through. And Mason Fedrick as well on that front row. It's his first full year on the geared bikes, of course, with even more power now in this class with the upgraded carburettor. He's a very impressive little rider, mixing it up with riders such as, you know, Frankie Watson and Sebastian Gaslawski. In fact, even qualifying ahead of Frankie Watson.
Absolutely, and well, it was a really disappointing race for Fedrick yesterday. A problem with, we believe, his gear selector actually coming off. Ultimately finished last on the road, P11, a lap down. Let's run through the grid for you, shall we? It is Sebastian Gaslawski who starts on pole position. His lap time 2/10 quicker than Fedrick alongside Frankie Watson and Matthew Thomas on row 2, with Bradley Curtis 5th. Josh Perkins in P6. Tommy Keats is 7th, with Jensen Ansel in P8. Emilio Pereira and Caelan Ratcliffe rounding out the top 10, with Nicholas Dunwoody in 11th, Kai Hawke in 12th, and Oscar McAllister rounding out our grid of 13 riders, should I say, here at Ellough Park. Race number 2 getting ready to go here. Sebastian Gaslawski did dominate race number 1, but only after Fedrick had those issues. So going into this one, if Fedrick is able to overcome those reliability problems, and if the gear lever actually stays on the bike,
helpful,
should be a really interesting fight.
Yeah, funnily enough, you do need that. Who'd have thought? They are making their way to the grid. They'll line themselves up, and then we'll be able to go racing once again. Of course, it's the almost war between chassis. The Ohvale versus, of course, the Metrakits. They are both fairly equal in terms of the pace, thanks to the regulations of the Mini GP50-R class. However, who's going to be more favoured around Ellough Park, where you need the acceleration, you also need the top-end speed, you also need the agility through the corners. Final lineups being made towards the back end of the field. It's Gaslawski on pole, Fedric alongside, eyes to the lights for race number 2, the Mini GP50-R class. Lights go out, we go racing. Good start there from the front row. Mason Fedric straight into the race lead towards turn 1. Gaslawski had no defence there as they're making their way through further back as well. Is the switch back on for the 64? Super Seb unable to find a way through. Frankie Watson settling in 3rd place, but Mason Fedric already up into the race lead, immediately under pressure though. Sebastian Gaslawski looks to go to the outside through the infield hairpin. No way through for now. Mason Fedric leads this race.
Ohvale leads in front of Metrakit. Great start there from Mason Fedric. Can he hold on from the hard-charging Sebastian Gaslawski, though, as the rest of the riders negotiate their way around Ellough Park, the front 2. And already Gaslawski's back in front. We missed the move, but the 64 back to the lead of the race, and he should be leading the opening lap at the end of this tour. As there we see Tommy Keats, he's made a couple of moves on this one. Gaslawski, small check back over the right-hand shoulder just to confirm, yep, I'm in the lead. And at the line as well, pretty healthy gap, a couple of tenths at least. So Gaslawski and Fedric, both of them pulling away, and Gaslawski with a big enough gap behind him that he doesn't need to worry about coming under immediate attack.
Yeah, exactly. However, you can't get sort of complacent with that. You have to keep pressing on. The race is only going to be out of your front view. You cannot be worrying about what's going on behind you. The minute you start looking backwards is the minute you concede and allow them to close the gap. Mason Fedric, of course, needs to be locked onto the rear fender of Gaslawski, not let him get away one bit. There you can see the 71. That's Bradley Curtis. Whatever issues befallen the GP50 bike that he's on, thankfully, are all sorted that we saw earlier on. So he's back out on track at the moment in 5th, trying to chase down Matthew Thomas just in front of him. That's the battle for 4th place. Then, of course, Frankie Watson completing the podium just in behind our top 2. However, that last lap time, 0.3 of a second in favour of Gaslawski. He's pulling away in front and not looking to bring Mason Fedric with him.
Well, let's see if Fedric can try and keep pace, though. It's anybody's guess with 8 laps left to run in this one. There is Bradley Curtis all over the rear of Matthew Thomas, the 47, just about holding on to 4th place as it stands in front of them. Frankie Watson is rounding out the podium, not too far in front of them, it must be added. So maybe if these two decided to work together, they could push forward and both try and compete for the final podium place. We'll have to wait and see if they're going to do that, or if they decide, you know what, nah, let's just fight each other instead for 4th. Only time will tell. As a little look to the inside there from Curtis, who isn't having any gearbox gremlins so far, but it has been affecting him all weekends. Touching wood, the commentator's curse doesn't come in there, and he immediately blows up. Looks to the outside, now to the inside maybe. Gets a great run out of turn 1, but Thomas slams the door shut, doesn't let him through. He's going to have to defend hard now. They're going to lose time. This is now very firmly a battle for 4th.
Yeah, very, very much so. Of course, once they're settled in this battle, there's not really much that they're going to be able to do in order to get after Frankie Watson, unless there's a mistake that falls the way of the 14. We are at the moment 3 laps into this race. 7 laps to go, make that 6.5, of course, as they'll break the beam once more and start another lap in a few moments' time. Gaslawski able to lead from Mason Fedric, Frankie Watson, then this battle you're watching on screen. Matthew Thomas, the bike in front, the 71, the blue and white machine just in behind. How much longer? Look to the inside from Bradley Curtis. Lovely stuff into that final hairpin. Gets the acceleration he needs as well. Has to go defensive on the drag race towards turn 1, giving Thomas the squeeze to open up turn 1 as much as possible. Now, Bradley Curtis in front into 4th place. Can he check out, or has Thomas got a defence in mind in order to launch a counter-attack?
Lovely, lovely move there to get inside and get that position as well as they run the laps down. Can Curtis disappear, or will Matthew Thomas continue to attack? We'll have to wait and see. 6 laps left to go. Gaslawski still only 0.5 ahead of Mason Fedric. He's not broken away, as much as he'd have liked to, I don't think. It initially looked like Gaslawski on the 64 was just going to start creeping away, but both of them staying hot with each other. But they themselves, of course, have now vanished ahead away from Frankie Watson. It was 2.5 seconds from Frederick to Frankie Watson at the line last time. It is now up to 2.7, so slowly pulling away are the leaders with 5 laps left to go and continuing to do battle as well. Even if they're not right next to each other on the racetrack, Frederick is close enough to cause some pressure. Maybe just fill that space at the back of the mind of Sebastian Gaslawski. And that's what Frederick will be really trying to do. I think he knows, quite frankly, he doesn't quite have the pace to make the move on his own. I think he's relying on a small Gaslawski error, just running ever so slightly deep into a corner or missing a braking point by maybe half a metre at most. That's just going to run him a little bit wide. That allows him to close up, try and get through.
Yeah, motor racing is margins of, fractions of fractions when it comes to how sensitive adjustments are, and all it takes, like you say, half a metre too late, half a second too long in terms of reactions, and that's all it can take to really change a race around. Mason Frederick, though, like you say, on pure pace, keeping it respectably at a little bit of a stalemate, but you're right, he's going to need to make a mistake. How he does that, he needs to fill the mirrors, he needs to make his shadow, albeit not very big ones, no, with the sun hiding away behind the clouds, but you need to sort of get as close as you can. Let Gaslawski hear your bike behind him, let him see your shadow, close the gap under braking as you go, because it makes him think twice, and the minute he's got hesitation, the minute he thinks and second guesses himself, is the minute that you can then capitalise. Mason Frederick, we saw through his mini moto days when he was racing with Rex Austin and Caelan Ratcliffe, he never hesitated, he was so aggressive. If there was a gap, he was going to fill it, and you can bet your bottom dollar, if he's able to close that gap with 3 laps left to go, he's going to execute at least an attempt for the race lead.
But you can see, unfortunately, the gap now visually growing up to 0.8 of a second at the line on the previous tour, and it looks like it's growing still, whether Frederick is backing off a little bit, whether maybe there's an issue, or whether Gaslawski is entering another gear. Who, quite frankly, can't tell, but you can tell it's growing, and you can tell that Gaslawski now is starting to put one hand on that first place trophy come the end of this race. Race number 2, of course, in the Mini GP50-R class, this new class for the 2025 Mastermac FAB-Racing Minibike British Championship season. As they continue to push around, there is Emilio Pereira just in front of Tommy Keats. That's for P7 at the moment, and Pereira doing a great job once again. This is his first season racing on the Mini GP50 and the Mini GP50-R bikes. And of course, the upgraded Mini GP50 bikes that are them with the bigger carburetor, jumping straight up as well from the FAB-Racing Rookies Cup. A phenomenal jump to make. He's not messing around. It was like, no, I've done my mini motos, I want a vice championship in that. He's getting straight on the gear bikes, and I tell you what, he has mightily impressed me so far this season. Sometimes you get it with riders, they make the jump a little bit too early, they're not quite ready, physically, or their skills just aren't quite there yet for the bigger gear bikes, but Pereira's jumped in and immediately is right in the mix in the midfield.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was a very, very strong contender. Of course, has won Mini Moto Championships in other forms of British mini bike racing. Of course, just missed out at this very track in September of last year to Nelly Nuth. A mistake of his own volition, but it seems that he's been able to recover from that. He's a very confident young rider, and his confidence that you don't often see. Some of them are quite shy and reserved. Emilio Pereira, he knows how good he is. He's got the shades, he's got the swagger, he's got the cool, and that's what he brings onto the racetrack as well. I was looking over the winter as well at the extensive prep that all riders have been doing, but Pereira especially, to get up to grips with a geared bike. Half a lap left to go though for Sebastian Gaslawski, and it seems though he's thwarted off the attack from Mason Frederick, and he's just, cruising his way to victory.
Yeah, Gaslawski has done a mighty effort. There's Bradley Curtis currently in 4th place. And, we just wait to see where our leaders are. And there is Sebastian Gaslawski with a couple of corners to go. It was a fight early on, but now he can cruise on by. The 64 takes race number 2 with a fantastic performance. Gaslawski, once again, is the man to beat in 2025. Takes victory by 2.2 seconds in race 2 of the Mini GP50Rs. And yes, there was an early fight, but once he clicked, once he found that zone, once the bike came to him and was all warmed up and ready, there was no looking back. The 64's on top once again. A fantastic performance from him as Mason Frederick and Frankie Watson round out the podium places. but really there was only one man it was going to be, and it was that boy who started from pole position and never really looked back. Is he doing a practice start as well? Even preparing for race number 3 later on here in the 50s. Unbelievable. He's just won a race and he's like, you know what, yeah, practice start. I wasn't happy with how that went. I lost a position. Let's try that again.
He's got more races to win. Of course, we're running through the full finishing results. Of course, it's Gaslawski, Super Seb, that takes victory ahead of Mason Frederick and Frankie Watson, the podium. Bradley Curtis and Matthew Thomas complete the top 5 ahead of Josh Perkins, and Emilio Pereira, who was able to fend off Tommy Keats in the battle for 7th. Nicholas Dunwoody from Caelan Ratcliffe, the top 10, and Oscar McAllister, bike number 11 in P11 at the end of that one as well. That's race number 2 at the Mini GP50-R class, of course, with the Ohvale 140 and 160s out with them, and we'll see them later on for race number 3. And well, what a race we're expecting. I mean, Sebastian Gaslawski, of course, those tyres on that bike have to do an extra set, whereas Mason Frederick, of course, has got the Ohvale set to go with it, so he's going to be maybe a slight advantage later on in the day. But Gaslawski and his riding at the moment he's just rising to another level this year in 2025.
Yeah, he really, really is doing a fantastic job, and once again with a fantastic display. These guys, of course, they'll be out for race 3 a little bit later on, and it should be interesting to see whether Frederick can get any closer or whether Gaslawski is simply untouchable.